Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heal, Thrive, Dream. Today's guest is Elizabeth C. Haynes. Elizabeth is an author, and she has written a book called Halfway There, Lessons at Midlife. She also has a website where you can check out her work, elizabethchaynes.com. And Elizabeth's here today to tell us her story and the medical and mental health issues she's had that may be related to her story. All right, Elizabeth, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So let's start with you. Let's just jump in. I'm not much on small talk, because everybody's busy. But let's just jump in, and maybe you could share what you are comfortable with sharing about your history of abuse so the audience can understand.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in an abusive household. So my parents split when I was about 3 years old, and I was with my mother. Eventually, my brother went to live with my father. And my mother was, she was verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive when I was younger. So I went through that. As I got older, it was more verbal and emotional abuse. And then I had an abusive boyfriend in high school, my first boyfriend. So kind of coming out of all of that in my 20s and trying to deal with that. And then in my late 20s, I had another abusive boyfriend. He was also emotionally and mentally abusive, and then he finally tried to punch me in the face, and so then I left, and I'm glad that I did. And so that's kind of my abuse story. It kind of, most of it was growing up, but then it happened, repetitive again, and I learned a lot from that.
Okay. Want to share some things that you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've learned is just about how abuse works, and I can recognize it really quickly. And I also understand why people can't leave and why you get stuck. And so for me, the biggest lesson on all of that came in my late 20s when I was dating this person. And he was one of those people that everybody said he was so charismatic and, oh my gosh, he's a great guy. And so nobody believed me. I told a few people what happened afterward, and nobody believed me. And, I knew he had a gun. So I was like, I'm going to not say anything. He's got a temper and whatnot. But what I learned was it was so hard for me to lead that relationship because he had beaten my self-esteem down so badly that, he had convinced me I wouldn't, and he would tell me, you won't do any better and all of that kind of thing. And so coming out of that, I really had to put like Post-it notes on my mirror, that I would look at every day to rebuild my self-esteem. So, the biggest thing that I've learned about abuse is just how hard it is to get out of. And so I don't look down on people who are stuck in it. I understand it. I don't think it's good, obviously, but I understand it. So.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit how your background and your childhood and your adult experiences too with abuse and domestic violence, how has that played out for your mental health?
I've struggled with depression and anxiety my entire life. So, I have a wonderful husband now. Thank goodness. This is my second time around. Awesome. So, and we've been together 10 years this summer. So, it does kind of change how you approach the world and how you think about things and how you interact with people. And I've really had to deprogram myself from all of that. And it's taken a long time. And I don't even know if I answered your question correctly, but
yeah,
it's taken a long time to deprogram all that thinking, but I still struggle with depression and anxiety because when you are given these messages for decades, by your parents and then by people that you trust and that are supposed to take care of you, but they hurt you, you start building up these just different messages in your head and this tape that plays in your head. And that's something that I still have to work on, that I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm 40 now. So
It takes a really long time to, like you said, reprogram. Or
yeah.
I like to say, like, take the negative thinking patterns to the dump and learning how to substitute it with healthier thoughts. But it takes a
Yeah.
lot of practice, for
It
sure.
is. And, I've been in a lot of therapy, right? Before we got on, I told you I've seen my current counselor for more than 15 years, and I saw counselors growing up and psychiatrists and all of that. I know what to do, but I still can't do it all the time.
Yeah.
So even though I know all the techniques and, I know what to tell myself, I still, even today, talking to my counselor, who I love dearly, and she had said to me, I feel like I'm not being helpful enough. And I'm like, no, you're helpful enough because your voice is louder than the voice in my head. And you're the only person who has a louder voice than the voice in my head because I've known you the longest. You've been here for me, more than my parents a lot of time. I've known you longer than my husband. And so it's ongoing,
Yeah. Yeah. And tell us about your medical issues, and have you made a connection to your abuse and your medical? Because I
Um,
often make that connection for people, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I was born with this. I have mast cell disease, which is like a rare blood disease. So
Uh,
my body is allergic to everything. It thinks it's being attacked by everything. And so, I had this as an infant, even where I was having rashes and weird things happening. And I had hives in high school and just all kinds of swelling and all kinds of different weird things. And I had GI issues in my 20s. I now know what that is. But the thing that I've really identified in the last couple of years, I was fine. I got really sick in 2015 and I've been sick ever since. I kind of fell off a cliff. But kind of what I've realized since then is my emotional state really flares up my
yeah.
health
Yeah.
state.
Yeah. So
And I'm
it is
starting,
connected. Yeah.
it is, yeah. So I think I've got something baseline that is malfunctioning for sure, which shows up in tests, and it's a genetic thing. That's there for sure.
Hmm.
But I think now every time I have an emotional distress,
Hmm.
stress, something like this past week, I'm in Texas. We just went through a major disaster. I'm so flared up right now and just from
Yeah.
the emotional stress of that. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. If you have a chronic illness, how much it's tied into your emotions, your spirit. It's not all just physical. Our bodies are more than just blood cells. We have something else lighting us up. There's something else there. There's our emotions, there are thoughts, and you can't measure those with scientific instruments. Those things, I think, really impact your health sometimes if you can't control them well enough.
Yeah. Okay. Are you reading anything interesting right now that you like to tell the audience about? I usually ask that question sometimes. Are you a reader or favorite
Yeah,
podcast or?
I am. Well, like I struggle with my anxiety, so I have a hard time focusing. But my husband bought me Barack Obama's book, so I'm reading that right now, which is just really, and that's a hefty book. So that's the one that I'm on right now, and that's going to take me a while.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, it sounds like good reading.
Yeah.
Um, okay. What's your favorite tips? It can be on how to recover from trauma, or, what are some things that have worked in the past for you when you're trying to, heal yourself with your anxiety and depression, or what's something that comforts you when everything's going to hell in a handbasket? You're
Um,
not feeling well.
Yeah, I find that if you have at least one person in your life that you can really rely on, for me, I've been abandoned a lot and left a lot. And for me, having my husband is that one person who I know this time around, at least. My first husband cheated and left, but this one
This one is golden.
going to stay. So I think having at least one person, or even if it's a counselor, I can't even express how beneficial she is to me, even though she can't fix my health issues. She can't fix financial issues. She can't fix any of that, or family issues, but just having somebody to hear you. And the other things that work really well, like I mentioned, Post-it notes. Sometimes I go through these phases where I just have to put positive affirmations on my bathroom mirror so that I read them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, subconscious, I guess, where you're just digesting it. You're not, I don't consciously read them and read them out loud, but I think I see them as I'm brushing my teeth or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that that really helps. And then the other thing that helps me a lot is I just have to take a break from the internet and social media, especially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I've also have to be, in the last couple months, I've really closed my world a lot. And I've started just removing anybody that ever triggers me in any way by whatever they do, whatever they say. If I find myself triggered by that person, I've just decided, because most people, they're not your best friends, it's just people you know. I've just decided that I don't want any additional triggers in my life. And I'm
Yeah.
okay with just kind of cutting. And so
Yeah.
those are the things that help me the most. And then my world is smaller. So when I do sign on to social media, I'm seeing a lot less things that upset me, trigger me, all of that. And I can participate with the people I want to still talk to without being thrown off,
I really like that you said that, because it's amazing to me how many survivors I talk to that keep trying to have relationships with toxic people, because they
Yeah.
think they have to do, the right thing. And I'm like, what if the right thing is you take care of you, you protect yourself more. So I'm really glad that you said that. I think that's actually pretty healthy.
Yeah, I think you have to do that. And I even, that boyfriend in my 20s, I mean, we shared a lot of friends and I would see things pop up from him. And I just had to start deleting people where his face would show up with their face, because I didn't want to see, I would have like a post-traumatic stress kind of response when I would see him. And
Mhm.
so whether I would see him out in public, which happened a couple times, or online, I just had to start cutting, and there
Yeah.
were a couple cases where if he was invited to a get together and I was as well. I remember one case I pulled the host aside and I knew him pretty well. And I said, hey, look, this guy was abusive to me. I can't be in the same room. And he was like, oh my God. And he never invited him again. And so, you do have to
Hmm.
take care of yourself. And it's not like I'm trying to you know, dog him out everywhere, but I was trying to protect myself.
Yeah. And you did
Yeah.
it in what's the right word? Just in a considerate way. You didn't make a big scene, you pulled the
Right.
host aside. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. I like that you did that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah.
I just,
Good.
I was trying to recover from that experience. And every time I would see him, it would trigger something in me and I would take a step back. Or every time I would see somebody with him or talking about him, how great he was. I mean, he's a massage therapist. So people would always talk about he's wonderful. I'm like, and I would see people go to his business and I just had to cut all of that because I just,
You knew the true him.
yeah, I did.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you want to tell our guests a little more about your book and where they can get it, and maybe how do you normally describe it so people can get excited about reading it?
Yeah, I started writing it right after I got sick. This is my 5th attempt to write a book. So, I mean, I've been a professional writer since I left college. My degree's in English. And so this book, I really kind of wrote it to help people. I didn't start writing a book. I just decided one day I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to write about things. And I just sat down one day and I said, oh, I had this one experience where I had joy, and I haven't had a lot of experiences with joy. And I just decided I'm going to write about that, not for anybody. And what I learned as I was writing was everybody's capable of it. Something has to pull it out. Something has to trigger it. And it was something new that I learned from my experience. And so I just kind of kept going. And eventually I thought, oh, I've got something here. So it's just kind of these little snippets that are a few pages long each, sharing something that happened in my life that maybe people can relate to, because I've been through a lot of things, and not just abuse and trauma, but, long-term unemployment and family issues, self-esteem issues, anxiety, insomnia, relationship breakup. I'm divorced. My first husband cheated on me and left. I lost a child. There's all these kind of things that have happened to me. And I wanted to take it and turn it into something positive. So I wrote this book just of personal stories, which was terrifying to put out there. But I thought maybe I can help somebody and they can see, here's what I learned. Here are the strategies, kind of like in counseling where you get
Mm-hmm.
strategies. I've
Mm-hmm.
kind of laid out some different strategies based on different life experiences. Oh, you hate your job. Well, I've hated my job forever. So here's a strategy. Or I feel like I don't know what my purpose is. Well, I still don't. And here's a strategy for that, And so I just I hoped that it would help people. And I hoped also that it would give everything that I've been through in my life some kind of meaning. So that was the inspiration for it. I don't really dwell on the different things that happened to me, I'm kind of focused on what can you learn from it? How can you apply this to your life? So it's not, and it is kind of humorous in places. So it's not this like saga, like,
Yeah.
woe is me. I didn't want it to be that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could always just keep crying all the time, or we can cry and laugh and have some balance to it, right? You know,
Yeah.
those
I mean,
kind of moments.
I have one of the stories in there is called Boobs Will Sag, and that's one of people's favorite. And it was about when I finally failed the pencil test. And I don't know if you know what that is, where you stick like a pencil under your, yeah, okay. And it was just oh my God, I failed the pencil test, you know, and kind of that. And I have another story, you know, when I was really sick, I lost most of my hair, and what that felt like to lose all your hair, and then to watch your body change and to get older, you know. So I do have things in there, and I talk about insomnia, and what have I done to manage insomnia that I've had for as long as I can remember. And then, you know, I try to mix it up.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's you've got some hard truths, but it also has some inspiration for people, you know, because you kept it real. Yeah.
Yes, it is very real. It's very honest. I'm kind of an open book, and I put it in the book. So I don't really hide a lot. I just don't embellish. You know, I tell as much as is necessary for people to understand, for it to be interesting, for there to be a story that makes you want to read it. And then I kind of, you know, hope that it turns around so you can see yourself somewhere in that and go, oh, I didn't get that before, or I never looked at it that way. I never thought about it that way. I have a story in there about how I was judgmental, and I have an interracial marriage. My husband is Black, and I caught myself being judgmental of somebody. And it's kind of a humorous story, but I shared it to help people go, oh my gosh, am I doing that? You know, could I be more kind toward others? Could I be more kind toward me? So, you know, all of that kind of stuff.
Cool. My husband is also a hottie, and he's African-American as well.
Yeah, I have to tell you, my husband hasn't had a haircut in a year because we're at home, you know, quarantining for my health issues and just to be a good human. But I was taking his hair last night and like putting it in crazy ponytails, and we were just laughing. He looked like Coolio. I don't know if you remember Coolio.
My son kind of looks like that right now with his wild hair. Yeah. So do you want to hold up a cover of your book? Because we're also going to put this on YouTube eventually.
Here it is.
Oh, and do you have a kitty too?
I have 2 rescue cats. This is not my cat, and these are not my feet.
But I love those socks. Yeah.
I know. I do love fuzzy socks, and I love kitties. So it's a good representation, but this is what it looks like. It's in paperback and ebook. Eventually I'll have an audiobook out there. I don't have one yet, but that's coming.
Okay, awesome. So listeners, please note that there are 2 women authors with the same name. So it's important to get the C, Elizabeth C. Haynes.
And you can read Elizabeth Haynes' stuff. It's just, she's a crime writer. So if you want to read crime fiction, go find her. If you want to read my stuff, look for Elizabeth C. Haynes.
Right. All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being willing to come on and inspiring us today. It was really great having you.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.